New chair, y'all. Who dis? What's up, guys? I got a video for today about Larry Larr. But real quick, before I dive into that, I just want to do like a little update on an older post. So, pardon me as I have a strange interlude. I'm in a silly mood today. But you might remember I did a post about Omniscence, the Lost Tapes, a compilation album on Gentleman's Relief Records that I slightly contributed to. I contributed one of the lost tracks. As the title suggests, it's a compilation of, his unreleased music, mostly from the 90s, but from a couple different stages, eras in his career. But anyway, at the time, it was CD only, but if you follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky and all that jazz, I did say, vinyl version's coming, and it's finally out. And I would just put a little tiny tag on that post or something, but it's a little more complicated than that. There have been some changes, so I want to actually, kind of jump in here to explain it to you guys. And then we'll move on to Larry Larr. So it is out now. My copy has landed. We've got it. Here it is. The LP version. Here's the CD version. By the way, it's a double LP. In a nice fat picture cover and everything. But significantly, the track listing is a little bit different. And now, first off, the most minor change is that the track listing order has shifted slightly around record C. I think that's just because of what fits best on which LP, so they can squeeze in as much music as they can. That's not really relevant, but what is relevant is that there are actually a couple different songs. There's 18 tracks on here, there's 20 on here, and this isn't just missing 2. It isn't that simple. This is actually, well, technically it's missing 3, so you might say that's worse, but let's dive into it. So you might remember from my post on the CD, I did say, it's almost all lost unreleased music, but a couple of tracks had already been released on a Dope Folks EP called the Electra Emancipation EP. And so those tracks at the time had never been before released, but were released on Dope Folks in 2019-ish on the EP. And I say, oh, well, it's kind of surprising they carried it there, but it's pretty good because, this is a vinyl-only release. That's what Dope Folk does. And so for the CD heads, at least this is kind of a nice way to get it on CD. Okay, then when it comes time for the LP, why not drop it? Because if you're a hardcore vinyl head, and not / Omniscience fan, you've probably got this or can still pick this up. I mean, it's no longer really in print from Dope Folks, but I mean, it's not that rare. It's out there. But that's 20 tracks versus 18. There's 3 tracks from here. That means the vinyl LP has something the CD doesn't. So another thing I blogged about on that post was that Gentleman's Release had also reissued The God Hour, which it was, had pretty long gone out of print and was hard to find. And there's a couple of track listing differences there because it was a double CD that kind of put onto his single CD, and they were able to compress more tracks onto a single CD, but not 100% of them. So there was 1 or 2 bonus tracks that were only on the original, not on the re-release. So that's what's on here. That's the other bonus track, Church vs. State Remix. Yes, it's the same one I did listen to. It's not like a new remix or an alternate remix. It's that remix, but it had been CD only. So now that's a nice way to get it for the vinyl heads who couldn't have copped it before. So I think it's actually, it's a little more complicated that there's some tracks on here and some tracks on there and they don't all cross over. But I think ultimately Gentleman's Relief did it the best way possible. So everybody who's a CD only head and everybody who's a vinyl only head can get everything. And while I'm having this interlude, I guess I'll also quickly mention that at the same time as the Omniscience Lost Tapes LP, which just came out, GRR also released their repress of Nick Wiz's Cellar Selections Volume 1. That had originally come out in 2012 from No Sleep Recordings, and it was limited to 200 copies. So if you don't have it now, it's totally inaccessible. So great news that GRR repressed that, reissued that, and this time they've graduated from a sticker cover to a full picture cover. So that's pretty dope. Otherwise, this is exactly the same, no difference to the track listing, 100% repressed, but there's more. There's 700 copies pressed now, and now it's in a nice picture cover, so that's pretty cool. So I'm just throwing that in there while I'm here. So now let's get to Larry Larr. So I guess real quick, I'll just kind of spill into who Larry Larr is. Normally, I wouldn't do that necessarily on my blog's post. I kind of assume, if you dove deep enough to find Werner von Wallenrod, you're probably, know your hip-hop stuff pretty tightly and you know who Larry Larr is. But it's been so long. I mean, I've been doing this since the 90s, early 2000s. And at the time, Larry Larr was pretty current. Now it's decades old. We got a lot of younger people, so maybe you don't totally know. So real quick, Larry Larr, down with 3 Times Dope. First appearances were on 3 Times Dope's second album, Live from Magnificent Land, which was sort of their pop crossover album. Not entirely, it's a good album, but it definitely had a lot more kind of New Jack Swing R&B elements to it. The cover, they're sort of dressed up, they're doing an Earth, Wind, and Fire kind of thing. It's definitely, if you're a big 3 Times Dope fan, that's the questionable album. But one of the elements is not totally, there's still, like, EST is dope, there's nice production. And one of the most street elements to that, one of the most kind of raw, classic 3 Times Dope that hews closer to their original album and even their later third album, is the appearance of this new guy, and young guy, teenager, I think he was like 16 at the time, Larry Larr. And he's tight. He's on 2 songs, and he was a standout. And so when Rough House, Columbia, that like independent Philly label, well, not independent, like when it got picked up by Sony Columbia, and they're signing dope Philly acts, and that was fortunately too short-lived, but really tight roster, that little brief kind of sub-label. Larry Larr was one of the first ones they signed. He came out with an album with his DJ Mad Ice, and it was dope, and it had some great songs, and it was produced a lot by 3 Times Dope, also Tat Money, and featured EST on there. And just kind of a really kind of classic Philly album from 1991. Although then they kind of pushed him to go R&B, and like one of his singles was Confused, which had like a big song hook, and they had Prince Marky D in the Soul Convention do like a big remix of it and all that kind of thing. And that was it. Like, he kind of got dropped. It was over. It was like a one album, one and done kind of thing. And for the most part, that's basically the whole story of Larry Larr, except in the 90s, after that 91 album, in 92, 93, he came out with some dope indie 12 inches, which are pretty rare, really hard to find, especially if you're not like, choking out like, 3 bones on eBay or something, but definitely worth your time. Even better possibly than the album. Definitely better than the weaker moments on the album, like Confused or anything like that. Maybe not quite as tight as like the real highlights, but very close. This is some really classic Larry Larr. He's a little bit older, more mature, but I mean, he's probably gone from like 17 to 18, like 92, 93. The first one is Catch the Flavor on Flavor Records. This is the only record from Flavor Records. I believe it was just created to put this out. That's why it's called Flavor on Catch the Flavor. This is 1992. Larry Larr features a guy named Kid Funky, who's a reggae artist, who's doing like a lot of chanting on the hook. And there's 2 versions on here. And by the way, this is killer. The production is by DJ Mad Ice, which again was his DJ and the guy who worked on his album with him in 1991. He's producing the single. Tight, high energy, fast, hardcore, street. It's kind of everything you wanted from the album, and not the kind of more pop commercial stuff that also got stuffed onto the album. So like, it's in tune with his highlights. He's killing it. Like I said, there's 2 versions, the hip hop version and the reggae version. Both of them feature Kid Funky doing a reggae hook. But the reggae version, interestingly, is just Kid Funky. So he does all the verses in between the hook, and that's all reggae style too. He's not doing like American style rapping. That's dope. I really like both. But obviously, as a Larry Larr fan, you're here for the Larry Larr version, and that's, definitely my preferred one. And he's kind of killing on here. It's interesting, 1992. There's a little bit sort of like of a nod to 90s conventions, like especially a point in the middle there, he's kind of doing the Das Effects diggity stuff, you say, okay, a little bit played out, especially, okay, Das Effects did it originally, it was tight, then they redid it again and again. You say, okay, you know what, that was a gimmick, not really a style that we need to hear over and over again. And by the time it's sort of boiled down to people like Heather B doing on their records, you're like, I'm done with it. So you could sort of say, oh, really, do we need Larry Larr doing it? But he just kind of picks it up and kills it, and then throws it away. So it's almost more like he's not sort of adopting the style so much as sort of saying, here, you like this? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it better, and bam. And he doesn't do it during the whole song. It's just for one verse. But he kind of kills it through the whole thing.
They want flavor. They must pick up the flavor. They want flavor. They must pick up the flavor. They want flavor. They must pick up the flavor. They want flavor. Flavor, kick up the flavor.
Check, so come on, yo, when they records and smash, they get back, coming fast, and all they do is talk back. Like biggity, hey! Sometimes I wanna ask them what the hell did they say? No biggity, hot shot, woo! I'm going biggity, bam! No diggity, damn, I slam a jam like Michael Jordan. Biggity. Sometimes I make me wanna scream, release my thing, rap a queen, just release my jeans. Like you talk junk and get in chunk, you wanna be back, yes, my hands are slam dunk, you little punk. Star from a bully, I'm all, and if you don't agree, jinx, will give me my balls back. And if you got beef, I smoke that ass like a chief, but watch me knock out teeth, leave it saying good grief. No matter how much luck and cash you got, I keep a posse on board, they like to mix a lot, cause I'm bad. Hitting it up with one line, yo, the show is not over to the Batman Bronx.
Catch the flavor if you can, oh God, catch the flavor if you can. Jump all around for them is a calmer.
Then in 1993, Larry Larr came back with his second single, or, like fourth single, but second independent post Rough House single, It's the L, a duet with EST. It's on Get Paid Records, again, a label only put together to release this one single record. There's not other Get Paid Records stuff. Well, if you look on Discogs, they do list a couple other things, but I believe they're combining two different Get Paid labels, two labels, independent labels with the same name, as if it was one label. I don't think it is. This is a one-off, tight Larry Larr single produced by 3 Times Dope. Again, features EST. How nice is that? A duet with EST. And it's got a couple songs on here, including, interestingly, Catch the Flavor. And what's kind of crazy about that is, when you listen to it, it's the reggae version of Catch the Flavor, i.e. not the version with Larry Larr. What a weird decision. It's the, Kid Funky all the way. I like that version, but, you're buying the Larry Larr single. Surely you want the Larry Larr version. What a strange choice to release that. So you need the original single to get, even though Catch the Flavor is on here, you need the original Catch the Flavor 12-inch to get both versions, and crucially, critically, the Larry Larr version. But at least, hey, it's nice to get that on here. So you got those 2 tracks. There's also an instrumental and acapella on here. And then there's one more track called The Funk Freakers, which is a tight posse cut, which doesn't credit the artist. But if you pay attention, you can hear who it is. First is a guy named Crush, who is actually from Ill Kids Incorporated, which is an independent group of hip-hop artists that was down with 3 Times Dope. In fact, I'd sort of say they were kind of like the group that was under EST's wings. He was sort of managing, promoting them, almost like an unofficial member, sort of like Nonfiction was to MC Search, in those very early singles before they kind of split apart and Nonfiction went off and did their whole other own thing. You probably know Ruggedness, the producer, did a lot of Philly stuff, but Ruggedness is not on here, but Crush is, so he's on here. Larry Larr himself is on here, and then it's a group called the Masters of the Universe. And no, I'm fairly confident this is not the Masters of the Universe from like San Diego that was down with Orko Elohim, even though this is the same period in the 90s. Definitely not those guys. This is like, Philly guys. And one of them, clearly, I would say, is Kid Funky. And then there's 3 other guys. One guy who seems to be named Unique, which, how much I love how many people are named Unique in hip-hop. The other 2 guys, known as the Rough 2, I don't have more specific names than that. That's just what they say in the course of the song. By the way, one disappointing aspect of this single is that these are just the radio edits. And there's not a whole lot of cursing on here. These aren't like filthy crazy albums, but there are a couple curses and they're flipped, so a little disappointing. But still, these hit really hard. When you listen to Funk Freakers, Larry Larr has a tight verse in the middle where he sort of talks about how he left Rough House. He says, like, I used to be down with Rough House Sony, but then they dropped me because I couldn't sing like Tony, Tony, Tony. And obviously, like, I'm sure they weren't actually expecting Larry Larr to sing. Again, he was the most street guy from 3 Times Dope. But I think because they wanted to push him to go in the direction of, like, Confused and hit that kind of single with the R&B hook and all, and they probably wanted more of that, and he didn't want to go there, and he resisted. Because there was a cassette version of the same It's the L single released in 1994, so the following year, and actually has a bonus remix of It's the L that's only on the cassette version. But so, I don't know. Is there like a whole unreleased album from here? If there is, please somebody dig it up and release it. That would be killer, because this is great stuff. Like I said, as good as the best Larry Larr stuff, maybe even better. He was really onto something. He was like hot at this moment. He was working with dope guys. Oh, interestingly, this It's the L single says entirely produced by 3 Times Dope, but we know from the Catch the Flavor single that was produced by DJ Mad Ice. So I don't know if they're just not giving him proper credit on this one, or if maybe 3 Times Dope actually produced Catch the Flavor and they, incorrectly credited DJ Mad Ice there. I don't know the exact story there, but I would guess Mad Ice did Catch the Flavor and just didn't get credit on this one, even though he's on here. He's just not listed in the credits. Because the credits are not very thorough. Again, they don't even mention the Masters of the Universe or Crush. I know floating out there's another version of My Ace, My Pal, My Partner, which was his Legion of Doom single. Legion of Doom being him, EST, and Kwame. They had a song together, and that's on his 1991 album. But this is a totally different version with different instrumental and all that. That's just like floating around online. So there's that. There's another like kind of freestyle flow session with him in 3 Times Dope. So this could be a really nice, sweet package, even if you just gathered up these 2 rare independent singles, the cassette version with the additional remix and all that. You can make a really tight Larry Larr EP. And then again, if he has more in his vaults, so much more the merrier. So that's it. Play some clips. Just some great killer, rare Larry Larr stuff. A lot of people, a lot of fans, most fans probably thought his career ended in 91. So it's kind of nice to know that there's at least a little bit more material for a couple more years. And again, if there's any chance of more unreleased stuff. Larry Larr's out there. He's easy to find. Like, he's on Facebook. He's the real Larry Larr on Instagram and stuff. You can contact him. So, if you're Dope Folks, if you're Gentleman's Relief, if you're anybody else, ask him. Hit him up. Maybe we can get some more stuff. But even if not, at least this music is really dope, as you're going to hear. So Larry Larr, Catch the Flavor, It's the L, the whole thing. Great tracks. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching.
It's the L. He's back, he's back. It's the L. It's the L. Baby. It's the L. He's back, he's back. It's the L. It's the L. Baby. It's the L. Need I say more? Even if I'm chill, I make it sound hardcore. See me on TV, see me on tour.
Larry slamming.
Slamming like a door. Never played a game where I knew I couldn't score. Never met a whore, made me front on my force. Don't say I'm rich, but I make enough. And why me smack you with a knot if you call my bluff? I'm just an average Joe guy, won't say I'm shy. And if I say I don't get on, that would be a lie. And see, I like my blunts rolled up nice and round. And then I huff, then I puff, then I smoke them down. And then I jump on the sub, yo, and go in town. I see my boy ESP, so I gave a pound. Yo, he said it's time to come back in his music biz. Yo, why you positive? Word, well, here it is. The meditator with the ill funk data. I came to represent rich and get greater. Somebody's rocking, knocking the boots, but not you, kid. It's written on the kid in the L and me too, kid. ES. Brothers, need I say more? Peace to all the kids that love it hardcore. As I get my rhyme more one time for my boy. Been tight from school. Kids was always cool. It's the L. He's back, he's back. It's the L. It's the L. He's back, he's back. It's the L. It's the L. He's back, he's back. It's the L. It's the L. He's back, he's back. It's the L. I got the McMahon style. Mad style with McMahon. Say my rhyme for it, bring it back, then I let it dry. I got the flavor, some try to catch. So sit woo woo sick, cause this shit you can't fetch. The funk freakers, watch the funk freakers. Yes, the funk freakers, watch the funk freakers. Yes, the funk freakers, watch.
We be the ill folk freakers. So come down, me coming at the dance with me style and fashion. And when me people up on the mic, you know me mashin'. Is me coming at the dance with no unity. I just sending the dread, make you move your body. And why them young boys wanna run, come test me. And if you try sneak and you come to attack, you're about to get crushed and get him slapped.
See, it's the mad, you can yes the bad, you can wish you had, you can flavor like mine, but you don't, so you a sad. You get the funk freak up, call me the freak folk up, rugged like Tonka, smoke blunts like Archie Bunker. Used to be the one, yes, the wicked one, they call me Young Gun, because I used to shoot just for fun, now I'm on cash. Save the trash, get the stash, then I dash. No, I wouldn't sell out, cause I don't kiss. Used to be ripping with the rough house only, until they disowned me because I couldn't sing like Tony, blow me, tap me when you finish. Now I'm on the scene, getting green like spinach. Wouldn't give a damn if your name was Bruno, because I'm kicking like judo. Are we from here to Pluto? Oh no, it's the Black Man